Good morning. My name's Liz Rowlinson, editor of Place in the Sun, and we're here today to talk about the key things you need to know about Spain's non-lucrative visa. I'm here with legal expert Tanash Uttamchandani. Good morning, Tanash.
Good morning. Thank you for the invite. I'll be happy to answer any question you may have. I'm a lawyer at Legal Juris, a leading law firm south and east of Spain, but we operate throughout the whole country.
Brilliant. Yes, and you're very busy dealing with helping to people in Spain, British people and other nationalities to buy in Spain, to get residency, all the related aspects.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we manage property law, conveyancing, tax, immigration. So, I mean, you name it. We cover all these fields, especially for our clients who the majority are abroad and need assistance in all these matters. Also wills, after sales. So yeah.
Thank you. Great. Well, let's crack on. So the first question, obviously Spain, still very, very, very popular with buyers, but post-Brexit, most of us need to get a visa if we don't have an EU passport. So let's talk about the fact that what are the main options for visas for third country nationals, those without an EU passport, Tanash?
So that's correct. I mean, the citizens from a third country out of the European Union, they do need a visa unless they fall into specific categories like having stayed in Spain and continue to be in Spain after Brexit. So we could apply the Brexit agreement, or even having long-term residency in another European Union country, or maybe even have a family member with a European passport, maybe from Ireland. If not, then they would have to require a visa. So the main ones would be the non-lucrative visa and the nomad visa. There's a third option, which would be the golden visa, but unfortunately, from the 3rd of April, is going to be repealed. I mean, at the moment, we are submitting applications for the golden visa. If you are in this situation and you apply before the deadline and you meet the conditions, you're good to go and you'll be safe and sound, even though it will be abolished. But if not, we will have to stick with the non-lucrative visa and the digital nomad visa.
Great, thank you. So the non-lucrative visa, very, very popular amongst all the lawyers I talk to at the moment. What is it?
Yes, indeed. I mean, the non-lucrative visa is our most popular visa. It's intended for those who want to come to Spain without engaging in any work or professional activity, as long as they have sufficient economical means for themselves and also for their family. I mean, it's designed for pensioners or the ones who just simply have enough savings.
Yeah, so you say there, the clue is in the name, non-lucrative. It's for people who are not working and bringing in an income in Spain. Who does it? I mean, that when people get visas, they have to think about whether they want to be tax resident in a country as well, don't they? Could you just explain that?
I mean, of course, that's a very good question. In Spain, the tax system goes through the natural year, which is from 1st January till 31st December. So when you stay the most part of the year, which is half the year plus 1 day, 183 days, you become a tax resident. With a non-lucrative visa, you will indeed cross this limit. You will stay the most part of your time in Spain, so therefore you will become a tax resident. What does this mean? Well, that your worldwide income will have to be declared and paid in Spain. So say, for example, you have a deposit account and you gain interest. Well, that will have to be settled tax-wise in Spain. The same with rentals or dividends, any sort of passive income, and also pensions, right? In my opinion, what we should do is elaborate a tax plan according to everyone's specific needs, see what their assets are, and figure out the numbers. Because, for example, with the pensions, some are exempt, some do have a minimal allowance, but we would have to see it in detail.
Sure. And passive income, as you mentioned, can be pensions, it can be rental income from a property, can't it?
Yes, it could be rental income. You do have wealth tax. But the important thing to mention is that once you become a tax resident in Spain, bear in mind that there's an agreement between Spain and the UK to which you wouldn't be taxed twice. So
Yes.
that's really positive in my opinion.
Yes, the double taxation agreement, would it? Okay, right. What are the essential requirements for getting a non-lucrative visa?
Okay, so very important, the economical means. For the main applicant, you will need to provide the equivalent of 28,800 euros, yearly speaking. In pounds is more or less 26,000 pounds. For each additional family member, it's 7,200 euros yearly again, and pounds approximately 6,000 pounds. So more or less, as an estimate, two people would need 30,000 pounds. Like I said, it cannot come from labor with payslips, but any other form of income, bank statements, equity if you need, deposits, passive income, all that counts. Other documents you would need is a criminal record. If you're a minor, you don't need it. If by any chance you have a record of offenses, we would have to see in the particular case if they would be cancelled in Spain, because in the UK it never disappears, but in Spain it does. You will need to prove that you are no longer working. Normally, this is done with the P45 form. Other options is with employment history from HMRC, or otherwise, you can request a certificate from your company to determine that effectively you're no longer working in that company. And lastly, you would need insurance, whether it's a public insurance or a private insurance.
That's
Those are the main
healthcare
conditions.
insurance. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Sure. And just on the in terms of the requirements, you alluded to it just earlier, I think. I think to have this visa, you really
Mhm.
need to spend 100 at least 183 days a year in Spain, don't you? Each year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. I mean, this visa is meant for you to live in Spain. So living in Spain, you would have to spend at least 183 days, which is half the year plus 1 day. And that's what makes you a tax resident in Spain. You can travel around, you can move through the Schengen area. There's no problem. You can go back to the UK, but living, you must live in Spain.
Great. How and where do I apply to get this visa?
Okay, so the non-lucrative visa, you must apply in the country of origin. So in this case, our spectators would be from the UK, so they would have to apply in the UK. You have to apply before the Spanish consulate. The Spanish consulate delegates in a private company called BLS, who processes the visa applications. They have three offices: London, Manchester, and Edinburgh. So depending on where you live, you are assigned one or another consular district. Before that, you would have to book an appointment and submit all relevant documentation.
Great. And you can if I was married, would we each do an application, or would one person do it and the other be a dependent?
The way this works is that there's a main applicant and family members. This is more advantageous, especially when we speak about the economical means, as I mentioned before, because
Oh
the
yeah.
requirements are lower for each family member, but you have to prove the connection of being a family. So if you're going to bring your spouse, you will need to provide a marriage certificate. If you're going to bring your children with you, you need a birth certificate. So you can do it together, which is better, but if not, you can apply individually. And you apply at the same time, the same day with the same appointment.
Yes, and this actually, as we come on to timescales, that reminds me that someone I interviewed had applied for to try to get their copy of their marriage certificate for this visa, and they got married in Las Vegas, so that took a whole extra load of weeks to actually obtain. So that's something to bear in mind. Because let's talk about timescales, Tanash. How long will this take if people are beginning to think about the process?
Okay, so the formal answer we should give is up to 90 days. And why do we say up to 90 days? Well, because the majority of documents expire at 90 days. So the marriage certificate expires at 3 months. The proof of means, a bank certificate, also 3 months, except the ACRA, which is 6 months. The rest, normally after 3 months, are not valid. So ideally, you should understand the process, gather all the documents, make sure they comply with the Spanish law, get them apostilled, translated, and submit the application, and make sure everything is in order. If by any chance one document crosses a time limit, well, you can always request a new document and provide it further on in a period of remedy. But that will exceed the times and you will go into further costs. But 90 days, let's keep it to that, up to 90 days.
So, okay, that's to get the paper. And then once you have an appointment at the consulate, is that right? And then how long do you have to wait to find out?
Yeah, so you would have to book an appointment and you submit the documents. You should expect an answer within 10 working days, normally the answer before. And if by any chance you are missing some documents or some have expired or they need further clarification, well, they will notify you for you to provide these documents in another 10 working days. So if everything is fine, you will be granted your visa. You would have 1 month to pick up your passport, unless with the stamp in the visa, unless you request it to be delivered before. And you would have 90 days to come to Spain and request your TIE card, which is your foreigner's identity card. If by any chance your visa is not granted, you would appeal. You would have a month to appeal before the consulate, and if it's still not successful, then you would have to take it to courts through the courts of Madrid in a period of 2 months after the denial.
Yeah, I've encountered a few people that have appealed successfully though, so that's
Mhm.
positive. Okay, let's briefly talk about costs too. I know everyone's different, but can you you've alluded to sort of various bits of paperwork, legaling, things you need to do. Can you give a ballpark or a range for how much this might cost?
Well, that's pretty complicated. I mean, what any applicant should bear in mind is a couple of costs. I mean, first of all, legal fees. I mean, we highly recommend you do it through a qualified lawyer. If necessary, request their credentials to be assisted throughout the whole process. Bear in mind that there's a couple of documents you need, and each document has their own special requirements to
Mhm.
comply with the law. Apart from that, you would need to pay the public fee before the consulate, which is approximately £500 per each applicant. Then you will need to gather each document, so the criminal record, the marriage certificate in case you're married, birth certificate in case you're going to bring your kids, medical certificate. Well, all these certificates do have a cost associated. It depends on the public administration. Once you get these documents, you would have to get them legalized. Legalized means you have to submit it before the competent administration of your government for them to, behind the official page, stamp it with an apostle. And once you have that, which does have a slight cost, once you have that, it will have to be sent to public translators for their sworn translators. Sorry, not public translators, sworn translators. And they are a third-party company that do charge their own fees. On the other hand, private documents do not need to be sworn translated. A simple translation is more than enough. So those are different elements you must bear in mind in order to calculate the costs you will have to face. But it really depends on how many people will join your application. It's not the same just one person than a family of six, how many documents you require. Also, for example, the proof of means is not the same thing providing a bank statement of 1 page showing that you have enough funds than providing equity showing that you have multiple properties, you have pensions and a couple of
Yeah.
documents. So the simpler it is, the better.
Sure, but just to give people an idea, all the couples I've interviewed who've gone to Spain on a non-lucrative visa have told me between 1,000 and 2,000 euros is sort of the ballpark that they've told me they've ended up paying. So that's just a guidance. So
Hmm.
okay, the healthcare, Tanash, how does that I think if you're over UK state pension age, you can get a S1.
Yeah, I mean, you do need a health insurance, could be public or private. If you go for the public, our opinion would be to contact NHS and see what is your particular situation, because it depends on your age, it depends how much insurance you've paid. Also, other family members can piggyback onto your insurance. So it really depends on your particular situation. But if you're able to get the S1 certificate, which it's called the S1, you can directly use that in Spain for your health. So in this case, what we would do is register the certificate before our social security, and you will be fully covered. If you're not able to qualify for this, or it's not to your interest, then you would have to gather the private insurance. In this case, it must be done before a private company registered in Spain. Um, for at least 1 year, which is the duration of the visa, with full medical coverage.
Okay, thanks. So yes, you've mentioned the visa lasts for 1 year to start with. Then what happens? How do you have to renew in advance, and then I think it's for 2 years.
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, the process of renewal can be done directly in Spain, so you don't have to do it in the UK. It's much easier, simple, faster, and cheaper. In this case, you would have to provide sufficient economical means, but instead of for 1 year, for 2 years, you would have to provide insurance and declare that simply you haven't committed any sort of crime offenses, and if you're married, well, you continue to be married. So you submit the application, and you should expect an answer within a month, but can take up to 3 months. So what you should do is apply always before 60 days before the conclusion of your visa.
So then you've renewed for 2 years, and then finally it's another 2 years, I think, and then after 5 years you can go for permanent residency. Is that correct?
Yes, it's you get 1 year, 2 years, you renew for another 2 years, and after the fifth year, you can request long-term residency.
Great. Cool. And also this visa is often used, I think, as a stepping stone to then sort of perhaps changing to another type of visa once people established and found their way in Spain. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's an option. I mean, to be able to start your own company in Spain, you need to have stayed in Spain for at least 1 year legally. So the non-lucrative does grant you this. You should apply before the conclusion of the non-lucrative visa, and in this case, you would have to provide some documents. So depending on the work you will carry out, you would have to prove your professional competence. You would have to draft a business plan in order to explain what is the work you will carry out, if you will hire any workers, what's your expected return of investment, all these points. And these are pretty technical. It's not complicated, but there are different points to make sure, because you also have to declare that you will register before the Social Security in Spain. So I advise to do this before a solicitor of your confidence, and prepare all the documents and submit the application within 60 days prior to the conclusion.
Great. Okay, thank you. And a final question. I think you've alluded briefly to the police record and as a possibility of why people might get rejected. But any other reasons? Is it just paperwork?
I mean, that's a very, very good question. It's very important to note that if you comply with the conditions, you get the visa. It's not that the administration says, I feel like, or I don't feel like granting you the visa. So the thing is, you have to meet the specific requirements in each document to have their own particular specifics. So could be the marriage certificate, it might be expired, could be the ACRO, you might have some offenses. Normally, sometimes you get the documents and you wait a couple of times to get the next documents. So you have to get them again. So essentially, if you don't meet the criteria, it will be rejected. So that's why I really advise to get everything straightforward, understand everything you need, and go for it one shot.
Thank you. Well, I think we've covered quite a lot there. Hope that's been useful. There's more information at the placeinthesun.com relocation section. You can come to our exhibitions, listen to our webinars with legal jurists and other legal companies, and get in contact with you direct, Tanash. So thank you very much indeed for that. I hope that was useful to everyone.
Thank you very much.